Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good day, good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is. Welcome to today's session of the Web3 One is to One by the DAP list. My name is Yinka, and I am your host for today's session of Web3 One is to One, where we're talking about why Web3 data is difficult to work with. And today we have with us Alex from Transpose. So, Alex, if you don't mind giving us, a really quick intro about yourself, what you do, the really cool stuff Transpose is building, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds great. Yes. Super excited to be here. Thank you for hosting this. Yeah, really quick background on myself. So I am a co-founder at Transpose. Previously I was in, traditional finance, like my co-founder Michael, from the chat yesterday. And have been in crypto for quite some time, mostly on the technical side, doing
Mhm.
silly projects like NFT arbitrage, working on
Mhm.
APIs for accessing blockchain data. Have always been really, really interested in the data space. And I'm sure I'll keep this short because I'm sure we'll get deeper into this, into the background of Transpose. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, I started Transpose with my co-founder Michael, with the simple objective of making blockchain data just very, very simple for developers to use and access.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. Yesterday when we were having the session with Michael, and we're going over like what the experience was like and what the how the idea came to build and solve the problem Transpose is currently solving. And one of the things that he mentioned was, it wasn't particularly as random as most people would think, or as most people stumble upon startup ideas. You could say there wasn't this particular or special eureka moment. It was a problem that was being faced by a product you were building at the time, and that is what Transpose is today. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that story, if you will?
Yeah, I would love to. No, that's exactly right. It was not circumstantial at all. It was a very intentional kind of evolution. So, to back up the story a little bit, Michael and I last fall were working on this NFT metaverse project. So very, orthogonal to what we're working on now. The project was called Nifty City, and we basically had this, pretty high level idea of how to make, this really loaded concept of the metaverse super simple and down to earth. And we had this great idea, on paper at least, and we just jumped right into it. We started building it. We had a ton of fun building it. And as you can imagine, with an NFT based metaverse, you're heavily reliant on broad NFT data. So
Mm.
this was last fall that we started it, and at the time, especially, still the case now. Accessing NFT data was very, very difficult. The way
Mm.
you had to do it, and we'll talk, a little more about this, but the way you had to do it is by talking directly to a blockchain node and kind of iterating over every single event for the NFTs of interest, which is a very complex, low
Mm.
level thing that no developer who's building a high level application should ever be doing. So as we kind of phased out this NFT metaverse idea for one reason or another, we realized that our biggest challenge to getting it running had been blockchain data access. It was so complicated to access blockchain data, and at the same time, Michael and I were going through um, this accelerator, and we saw around us every single company in our cohort going through the exact same problem. Everyone
Mm.
had like two or three dedicated developers, with the sole focus, sole intention of kind of parsing and simplifying blockchain data at a very low
Mm.
level, wasting huge amounts of time, huge amounts of resources, doing all this repeated work, and that just should not be the case. So that was the background, the backdrop for Transpose, and is the exact problem we strive to solve.
Awesome. I mean, that would have been an interesting experience. Like you have, so many people right in front of you trying to figure this out, and you also had that problem, and was like, okay, you know what? We're either going to do something or nobody's going to do it, and you guys just like hit the ground running and you built Transpose.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's a good segue to what exactly is Transpose now.
Yeah. So So Transpose now, kind of just to to start from where I left off is, our mission, broadly speaking, is to really simplify Web3 data access. But that's, I can imagine, a very broad, all-encompassing statement. So what that means is, at the moment we have this API suite that effectively lets you talk to Web3 data like you would a Web2 API. So a really, really straightforward API that fully circumvents, the need to talk into a blockchain node. So what does that mean? An example to kind of piggyback off, the example I was currently using or previously using, NFT data. Say you wanted to pull every single time a specific wallet programmatically pull every single time a specific wallet, minted a specific, NFT collection between maybe two dates. So it's like it's a very targeted query, and if you wanted to do that the traditional way from just talking to a blockchain node, you would have to access an archive node provider, which costs a lot of money. You'd have to
Mm,
tediously understand how, like in the case of Ethereum, which Transposes was is built on at the moment. You have to tediously understand how the Ethereum virtual machine works at a low level,
mm,
which is out of the picture for a lot of developers. Um, and you have to scrape that node for the entire history of the blockchain that you're interested in, and
mm,
aggregate it, clean the data, filter the data, process the data, store the data, and that's a huge amount of work. Alternatively, using Transpose in a single endpoint by just specifying the date range, specifying the target wallet, specifying the target collection, and saying, oh, I only want mints, you can return all that data into your program in whatever program language you're using in a single call, in a single line
mm.
of code. So
Um,
it's just vastly more simple for developers.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that is. I remember Michael talking about something similar yesterday as well. I think he laid out an example of someone who, I don't know, I think they spent a decent amount of time, we'll just say, I don't know, maybe 10 hours trying to figure this exact same thing you talked about out. And then having to work with Transpose, quite literally saved them like 90% of the entire time they invested in trying to figure this out by themselves
Yeah,
and going into the blockchain and
yeah,
working with low level data. Yeah.
yeah.
So
There's
that
a
is,
funny story of one of our really, really early alpha testers. He was not, he did not have a Web3 background, no blockchain, specialized blockchain knowledge, and one of his really good friends. I'm not gonna, say any names or go into any detail, but one of his really good friends, um, worked at one of the large, NFT exchanges, and this exchange, had just launched on Ethereum. We're getting a bunch of pickup, and they were working on this problem of indexing kind of their own sales and adjacent NFT exchange sales, and they were having a huge amount of difficulty because I mean they're an NFT exchange, so they're probably expected to do it themselves in house. And this alpha tester of ours turned to his friend who at this NFT exchange and said,
mm,
how should I do this? We have the same issue. We also need to scrape NFT exchange data or sales data. And the friend at the exchange turned back to him and said, "Oh, that's going to be like at least 2 to 3 months of work right there. Especially if you're a solo developer."
mm,
And then he found Transpose, got it up and running in 3 days, 3 days.
mm.
Went
Wow.
back to his friend and said, "Yeah, I got it working perfectly." And he told that story to us, and we always got a kick out of it. It just really well highlighted, how Transpose can be used.
Yeah, exactly. That is so profound and so significant. Putting into context and perspective the utility and the usefulness of transport. That's so amazing. I mean, congratulations, you guys are doing like an amazing job. Well done.
Thank you.
So, again, congratulations on your beta launch. That was fairly recent. Do you want to tell us about that? Well, I'm curious that you might have had some rather interesting, or supposedly interesting challenges and maybe perhaps bottlenecks. What were some of the most interesting things you experienced while leading to the launch?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the biggest upgrade, internally. So for context, everyone, Transpose launched our alpha in probably May, late May of this year, and we've been in alpha and then open alpha, free open alpha for about 2 months, and we just launched our beta last week, which was a huge development. And the biggest upgrades I would say probably around productionization. So this problem of scraping blockchain data, you know, has throws so many, you know, has so many edge cases, so many like complex data cleaning questions. People do things on chain that are just like so wild. They try to break standards. They just go out of bounds. So making sure that when you're cleaning that data, you actually capture all those edge cases is really hard. I mean, we've had edge cases in our alpha that when we were picking up that data and processing it, like broke our entire back end just because they were so
Wow.
wild, and we like never
Wow.
thought they could ever happen. So really just building a resilient data pipeline that would never go down. Um, Internally, at least, that was probably the biggest upgrade and the biggest challenge. That being said, we also launched kind of this admin dashboard, a user experience, so people can sign up for Transpose, create API keys, invite their team members. We launched that. We launched a new website. We kind of formalized our documentation and all the endpoints people could use. So all that came with the beta. The beta is now, you know, transposed in a fully production state, which is awesome to see. And there's a lot more on the horizon.
Awesome, awesome, cool. Looking forward to all of the really, really, really cool stuff you guys are building. On edge cases, I remember Michael talking about yesterday how when reading on-chain data, you could see a supposed what would appear to be a token transfer, but there was no token that was actually being transferred, or what could appear to be an NFT sale, but none of that was happening.
Yeah, there's insane things. Like I think I overheard Michael talking about this yesterday, but
Yeah.
um, so for some context, OpenSea, for even more context, Transpose, provides the most consolidated kind of view of NFT sales data, just super clean, super simple, standardized across 11 different Ethereum exchanges, all the big guys. And it's
Mm,
the only place you can do that simply right now.
mm,
And Ethereum, or sorry, OpenSea launched their new Seaport exchange probably a month and a half ago, and testing. And the Seaport exchange, as opposed to the exchange they were using previously called Wyvern, um, was touted to just be so flexible. You could do things like exchange 4 NFTs for two different tokens, or exchange like a single token, a single NFT for like a whole bunch of tokens, or even exchange 2 NFTs for one another, or like two NFTs for 3 NFTs. It was
mm.
built to be super generic and super flexible. And so, as you can imagine, kind of scraping that data, knowing that there are all these crazy rules, was really, really hard. But alas, we thought, at least at the time, that we had done it successfully. We were really excited. We were the first people ever to provide public, Seaport data, Seaport sales data, and that was awesome. And then, as I
Yeah.
was just talking about, our entire backend went down because someone tried to use Seaport as a DEX by swapping tokens with each other, and we had not at all ever, programmed, the indexer for that use case, and
Mm,
that crashed like the entire indexer, which was pretty pretty funny. But
yeah.
yeah, so a lot of those.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I guess there are going to be a lot more to come. So you guys have better get ready for it. So many more interesting use cases that you never really thought of.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. So, with the title of the theme of today's session, it's why Web3 data is difficult to work with. Why exactly is it difficult to work with? Now, my question is, what are some of the reasons that make building in this space such a hassle? One of them, you could say, is the fact that we're still relatively early. But besides that, what are some of the things that you think, from your experience, makes building dApps, product protocols here in Web3 a hassle, for developers?
Totally, totally, totally. You know, it's a really good question. I think what it is, it's a combination of two things. Um, and they're both related. The first thing is that you know blockchain is just fundamentally difficult to work with.
Mm,
For people coming from Web 2 and people that don't have aren't technically savvy.
mm,
It's just there's so many rules and kind of reframings of the mind that are required to like properly work with Web3 or with dApps and Web3 front ends and whatnot, and blockchain technology, and it's so difficult, and people know this, right? People know
mm,
this, and there's been such a drive to kind of cater to really simplifying the Web3 user experience. And so like, you have all these fantastic, UIs like Genie swaps and whatnot that are just so minimalistic, really, really simplify, the kind of this proliferation of new wallets that just really simplify the Web3 scene so that a user never really even has to know what blockchain they're interacting with.
mm,
It's really beautiful. But the problem is that the infrastructure layer under the user layer or the application layer is still this like really discombobulated. It's
mm,
very complex. People are trying to simplify this user experience faster than they're trying to simplify the actual infrastructure that's being used to power that user experience.
mm,
So we kind of have a disconnect, and the consequence of that is that if you want to build a dApp, as I was previously talking about, you often have to, build a lot of the infrastructure layer yourself, and you have to do a
mm.
lot of that hard grunt work yourself.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
talk to a blockchain node. You have to do huge amounts of aggregations. You have to have a really data heavy background, and as a consequence, the space is really closed off to either really large and competent teams, or people that are competent and like data heavy applications
Mm,
and building and whatnot. So that's a huge problem. It was more so a problem a year ago. It's getting better every day, but
yeah.
there's still a bit of a rift there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like what you talked about, how it's getting better every day. Because here, we've had sessions with, really, really amazing people building really cool stuff. And every single week, I get to talk with people who are doing things that, I think didn't exist like 5, 6, 10 months ago. And these are things that are consistently making building in this space a lot easier and accessible and less of a hassle than a year ago, perhaps.
100%.
So, with all of these hassles, and some have been mitigated, some of which Transpose is solving, some haven't been, and some are still like an issue to deal with. We could call them a relatively higher barrier to entry, you could say. So why should anyone bother, right? Like, why bother? Because again, let's assume Transpose, isn't what it is today. People will still have to. I mean, people will build stuff. Complex system will still be built regardless. Why should anyone bother spending, like 2 months worth of development time trying to decode blockchain data or whatever it may be and still contribute to building in this space? Why?
Yeah, I mean, my question is, or sorry, my answer is actually like kind of contrarian. Like I
Mm.
legitimately don't think it is worth, spending 3 months, like reinventing a wheel, granted in a
Mm.
worse way than large teams will be able to do.
Mm.
Uh, just for no point. I mean, that is fundamentally the problem, and without data providers to bring your development timeline from a quarter of a year down to a week, it's just silly, and to expect anyone to build in that ecosystem in that on that landscape is also silly, and that was the problem for a long time. But alas, I think we're starting to do a good job at resolving that.
Mm. Yeah, cool. Cool stuff. So, from Transposer's perspective, or experience and aim slash goal slash what your team is doing, how do you aim to simplify this process? How do you aim to make it one less thing an engineer needs to worry about when it comes to building in this space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, you know, Kind of going back to what I said, the beauty of transpose and literally kind of everything we strive to do is such that um, you can talk to our data without ever having to worry about how a blockchain internally works. So
Mm.
if you want to lay out kind of the data pipeline for how data gets from a blockchain into a dApp, into a user experience and whatnot, it's very much, starts on chain, some back end job indexes it, pulls it all, or often just, the pieces of data on chain of interest, stores it in a
Mm,
conventional database, or, cleans it and then stores it in a conventional database. Um, then a separate like back end will query that database and pull it to the front end. You know,
mm,
that's it's like a 5 to 6 step process for
mm,
getting data from the blockchain to a user, to a dApp, which is news for a lot of people. A lot of people think, a dApp is fully decentralized. Reality
mm.
is it's 99% centralized,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
always will be.
yeah.
So that's the conventional way of doing it. What we strive to get done at Transpose is limit that to one step, where
Mm,
your backend can pull from Transpose without ever worrying about how the data got there, just knowing that it is accurate, and that it's simple to work with, and you can immediately build, complex user experiences with it.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's, I mean, going when Michael went over he sort of gave us a walkthrough yesterday, can 100% say that that is exactly what it is. And that's actually pretty cool that anyone who wants to build stuff, you have time to focus on what you intend on building as opposed to solving the problem of how to get the data and then trying to figure out what else to build. So yes, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Exactly.
So one of the things you mentioned that is, yeah, pretty sure I've had a conversation with someone on here is when you talked about dApps being 99% centralized, and so that's an interesting you could say contradiction between what an actual decentralized ecosystem should be, and then it begs the question, right? One, do you think we'll ever reach true decentralization as majority of the system right now? While this can be considered temporary, depends on centralized system. Do you think we will ever truly reach true decentralization? And then
Mm.
I'll preface that. I'll follow up with another question when you respond to this.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, again, I definitely have a contrarian opinion on this one, in that I don't think we need true decentralization. I think a fully decentralized process is untenable in the sense that
Mm,
it's never going to cater itself to a good user experience,
mm,
and fundamentally, people at the end of the day, 99% of people only care about user experience. So if that means
yeah,
centralizing some aspect of
yeah.
the application, then
Mm-hmm.
so be it. Um, the other thing I would say is, like, the graph made a big attempt at decentralizing the data layer,
Mm,
and I think I fundamentally disagree with that approach because it made the data so much more difficult to work with. It made it so much
mm,
harder for people to apply it to crazy, amazing ideas.
mm,
And I think that was a big mistake. It's always going to be important to decentralize the actual like settlement layer. If
mm,
someone submits a transaction, that should be indisputable. There should never
mm.
be a middleman there. And
Right.
I also, so another kind of caveat of my take on this is I disagree a lot with custodial wallets and all that. The fact that there can be even be a middleman there, like I
Mm,
don't support that entirely.
mm.
Um, but in terms of the data layer, it's verifiable in so many ways that a bit of centralization to improve the user experience, I think is worthwhile.
Yeah, 100%. I said I was going to ask another question, but you quite literally answered that in the first sentence, which is, should we even bother reaching true decentralization, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah.
my take is no. I think that's
Mm,
a bottomless kind of pit of that we'll never actually find the bottom to.
mm.
I think we're actually in a really good place, and we're getting to a better place.
Yeah, I also do think, considering the fact that not a lot of people are ready to handle the responsibility of true decentralization. Because if we take like the typical DAO right now, for example, as much as that could be considered what the future of organizations being autonomous might be, not everyone actively participates. More so, not everyone is interested in actively participating. It's like, oh, okay, you guys want to do stuff. All right, cool, go ahead.
A hundred
And
percent.
Yeah, go ahead and just get it done, and we will just sit back and it's cool because in the grand
Yeah,
scheme of things, human nature is there are always going to be hierarchies of some form of leadership and decision making, and a flat line parallel across the board for an organization as large as what we currently have with I don't know maybe systems
totally.
like maybe Facebook and Amazon having a flat zero hierarchy structure doesn't seem very reasonable because then you are dependent on so many moving parts for decisions to be made, and
Yeah,
people have different perspectives on decisions that need to be made doesn't necessarily mean they're right, and the fact that
uh,
they should be given the right to vote doesn't mean they should
yeah,
vote. And so
100%. Yeah. No, you raise a
yeah.
really good point. I mean, like
Mm,
even the regulatory framework that we currently live in would never support a fully decentralized model, as
mm,
we've seen with like the onion router and as kind of current decentralized attempts get closer to that it kind of blows up in your face like we've seen with
mm,
Tornado Cash and whatnot. So
mm.
um, yeah, I think it's kind of a lose lose situation by going that direction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we could also even argue if some of these DAOs are as decentralized as we'd like to think, especially when token allocation, there are discrepancies between them. A lot more people technically have more tokens than others. So I think in and of itself, as a term or as a concept of decentralization, seemed to me to be flawed, right? And that obviously brings in the conversation of whoever has the most token has the most voting power, and well, doesn't sound very decentralized, right?
Totally, totally.
Awesome. So yeah, this has been really really insightful so far. Just a quick break, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. We have here Alex with us from Transpose, and we're just having a conversation, trying to get into his mind on the problem Transpose is solving, how and why they're useful in this space. And he shared a couple experiences as to how they quite literally saved someone 2 to 3 months worth of development time in like 5 days. And so that is really, really cool. That being said, though, if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, things you'd like to learn more about, please feel free to raise your hand, join in on this session. I'm sure Alex will be more than happy to answer whatever question you might have. Even if it's not transpose related, if you would like insight on anything in the context of crypto NFTs and reading blockchain data, please feel free to hop on, and we'll be more than happy to listen to your thoughts. Okay, so back to you, Alex. You were going into the nitty gritties of getting NFT data and blockchain data, and you did say you were going to like circle back on that. Do you want to tell us what that is like? Heading into blockchain and reading and working with NFT data.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Um, you know, the hardest part about reading NFT and token data, and also like the most interesting part that not a lot of people appreciate, is just this idea around standards, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
there are probably four widely used NFT and token standards, or like just token standards in general. Three of which are actually used. For NFTs, those are ERC 721s and ERC 1155s. And for tokens, and this is at least in the context of the EVM, and for
Mm-hmm.
tokens, you have ERC 20s and ERC 777s. And ERC 777s being not often used anymore because of some reentrancy issues. Um, but broadly speaking, these are Ethereum improvement proposals, and they were introduced as kind of really really high level standards for which a smart contract must follow in order to be considered an NFT or a fungible token or whatnot. Um, and the way people typically you know offload and simplify, token data or NFT data is by, verifying if a specific contract kind of follows one standard or another. And there are two ways to do this, right? There's a there's an easy way and a hard way. The easy way is by, looking at a centralized entity like OpenSea and seeing every single NFT collection that's been added to OpenSea, and then trying to find those on chain, already knowing that they are NFTs or the smart
Mm,
contract is an NFT. So you're effectively using some entity like OpenSea as a heuristic for whether some on-chain smart contract is actually an NFT or not. That's the easy way, because you don't have to actually interrogate the contract. You already know it's an NFT.
mm,
The hard way is going on chain and
mm,
interrogating every contract to see what standard it abides by.
mm,
And the reason that is so hard is because people, going back to what we were talking about before, people implement these smart contracts in the wildest way. Like, sometimes they only follow like half a standard. Sometimes they implement standards on top of it. Sometimes they
mm,
use what are called proxy contracts to
mm,
actually like put the contract that follows the standard you know by behind another contract. Sometimes I've seen a proxy contract. One bug that blew up in our face during the alpha, someone had a proxy contract, which is like a contract that just forwards everything to another contract,
mm.
um, that actually changed standards. It changed from being a fungible token to an NFT, just like in like the middle of this January.
Mm,
And that really confused our systems. I'm sure it confused a lot of other systems. So really just the fact that anyone could implement these standards however they'd like, and it's your job to figure out what standard they follow. It's a huge problem. It's a very difficult problem. It's a problem we're grappling with for a long time. And the beauty of Transpose is we are completely implementation agnostic. So we go the hard way. We interrogate every single contract we come across on the blockchain, to see if it's an ERC20 or an ERC 721 or what have you. And we bucket it, correctly. So by calling transpose data, for sure that not only are the contracts or the data you're pulling, correctly bucketed as tokens and NFTs, but also that it's 100% complete. Every
mm.
single token or NFT that's ever been created on Ethereum, and very soon many other chains, it has been picked up and available to you on Transpose.
Oh wow, that's actually pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So relative to NFT data, how because I mean a lot of what you talked about, it goes to show that working with NFT data, I suppose prior to transpose, is a bit of a pain in the ass. So what about token data? Are these less of a hassle, or do these come more easily to query?
Yeah, it's honestly they are very similar. Like, they are very very similar. ERC 721 literally came from people using ERC20 tokens like NFTs. So they're very they're a standard from very much the same family.
Mm,
Um, I forget what I think it was CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties was like originally implemented as like half ERC20, half an attempt at being ERC 721. Granted,
mm,
ERC 721 didn't exist at the time, and so
mm,
CryptoKitties was very much the inspiration for the creation of that new standard. So I would say NFT data is definitely slightly harder because you're dealing
mm,
with like this many to one relationship or one to many relationship of a collection having many NFTs,
mm.
whereas a token contract is just a single token. So definitely a little harder, but not much.
Not much. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Thank you for that. So really quite curious at this point is, Transpose is doing, has done and is doing amazing work with simplifying um, blockchain data from, according to the website, from NFC data to token data to ENS API and even the block API. And those are really, really, really cool stuff, right? So what is the big picture for Transpose, and what is like the 3 years, 5 years, or maybe we could bring it down to like maybe 6 months and a year and a half sort of long term vision, and what should we be expecting from Transpose as time progresses?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I love being asked that question, because you know, for context, what we have done so far is put out this core API suite that lets anyone pull NFT data, token data, ENS data, even like some low-level data like blocks and transactions. But it's very granular. So to go back to that example I was giving earlier, if you wanted every single NFT sale that I bought or I was the buyer in the month of June 2022, you could do that really, really easily. And that would, return sometime, for certain wallets, of course, that would return, tens of thousands of responses. And so that's really cool. But the problem is, that a lot of use cases are still, aggregates. So, to give you an example, a lot of people, or statistic a lot of people care about is something like, I want a 24-hour rolling summation of NFT sales for this one collection. So every 24 hours or every X period of time, you snapshot the total amount of sales volume for that collection over the last 24 hours. And if you wanted to do that with Transpose, which you very much could, you would still have to do a little bit of work. You would have to pull in, every X minutes, like the last 24 hours of NFT sales, sum it all up, and get that, kind of end statistic, which is, pretty easy to do with Transpose, but still requires some labor on your end. And what happened was, a customer of ours came to us and kind of said, I want, this specific view of blockchain data. Like, I want you to index this protocol because you have the capability to do so. I want you to index this protocol. So say I want you to index, every time an Aave loan is liquidated, and then sum up all the loan liquidations over the last 24 hours. They could do that using Transpose. Well, actually not the Aave part. But that's a very specific view of blockchain data. And then what happened was another customer came to us and asked for the exact same view of data.
Right.
And so we realized that, all these people are coming to us and kind of looking for the same views of blockchain data and the ability to create these views. And so we quickly realized that we needed to expand the functionality of just our core API by providing the ability for people to create whatever view they want. And if someone creates, a specific view, then other people should be able to access that view. And so the 3-year horizon, or even the half-year horizon, and hopefully the 3-year horizon for Transpose is this full-fledged data platform in which anyone can provide any view of blockchain data, and anyone else could glean it. Anyone else could access it. So this would have the capability of indexing any protocol across chain and replacing incumbents like, the graph and whatnot. It'd have the capability of, aggregating this data in any way, creating kind of these metrics like liquidity weighted average prices and replacing incumbents like, CoinGecko or whatnot. And really just be the ultimate data platform for high level blockchain data. So that's the long-term horizon, and that's where we want to end up.
Awesome, cool. So when you say anyone can provide, does this mean anyone in the community could possibly come in, work with Transpose and provide a specific set of data, and every other person in the community or users or customers can then interact with that?
Exactly. We provide the data, and you can provide the transformation. Anyone
Gotcha.
could then access that.
And then access. Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I know. So again, everyone, thank you again for sticking through and just hanging out with us. If you do have any questions or suggestions you'd like to come up here and just speak, we'll be more than happy to have you. It's been an amazing session so far. Been an amazing session chatting with Alex from Transpose. Again, please feel free to just hop on and ask whatever questions you might have. So yeah, to potentially get the gears rolling for our developer community, what are some of the 3 critical dApps that can be built using Transpose? This could either be alpha or examples of protocols already working with the data Transpose has.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love talking about this because the beauty of a Transpose or a service like Transpose is that it just opens up a universe of possibilities that would otherwise be kind of off limits if you were to talk
100%.
directly to a node. So, maybe to start with things that, some of our current customers are doing, just to kind of highlight what that's like, and then I can talk about, what I don't think, people are doing enough. So some of the most exciting projects we're seeing Transpose used in, everything from Web2 games that are looking to,
Mhm.
integrate Web3 data. So just the ability to easily add NFT assets, or, tokenized, a tokenized economy to, a Web2 game, or just
Mhm.
pulling in data from Transpose, like, seamless. And it's so cool to see how quickly people can do things like that. We've
Mhm.
seen Transpose data used in NFT exchanges. We've seen it used in kind of like social Web3 social media projects, just,
Mhm.
streams of activity and whatnot. And that's been, just to see how easily people can integrate it has been very fruitful. In terms of things that I want to see Transpose use more in, and broadly speaking, I don't think have been done enough in the space, are slightly more esoteric, projects like fraud detection. Like Transpose is so well suited to run like kind of analytics and models to detect fraud. Um, and I think that'd be such a great use case of the
Mhm.
granularity of Transpose data. And it's a really big problem in Web3. So like things like wash trading, like calculating wash trading, just, by looking
Mhm.
at, Transpose NFT sales or deck swaps, would be really, really interesting. Um, there's a lot of analysis that can be done of Transpose data. Um, and I think there's so much, alpha to be uncovered, kind of, and analyzing token projects just by, kind of combining like wash trading through across all Ethereum dexes, with,
Mhm.
how people are trading the token, how like, liquidity is evolving over time. Just so many cool things to be mixed and matched with Transpose to glean alpha across NFT and token projects. And I don't think, there's a better data provider in order to uncover all that. So, that's really where the alpha is, in my opinion.
No, yeah, awesome. I mean, you guys, you heard the folks, you heard the man. I don't know if everyone here was taking notes, but I definitely was. Those were really ridiculously good alpha, and if neither one of you choose to take that up, well, I suppose, may the fastest individual win. But yeah, no, thank you so much for that, Alex.
Of course.
All right, so we are, rounding up real quick, and it's been such an amazing session. One of the things I like to just ask everyone that comes on here, because I suppose this one tends to be more, um, you could say, personal to you, would be there must have been one question that I might have skipped, or just never got around asking, but is one of the things you are particularly excited about Transpose and what you're doing and the team, the mission. So, what is that particular thing that excites you about this product?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's one thing that excites me? That's a really good question.
Mm.
Yeah, let's see. I think I probably answered it in there, so I'm trying to figure out, um, what else really excites me about this space. One thing that I don't think is talked about enough, and that Transpose was desperately trying to do, and will roll out over the next 3 months, is this idea of, interacting with whatever chain and data from, data across chain, using the same exact, standardized, interface. And I think, we've seen like data provider companies try to do this with high level data and just fail time and time again, um, at really standardizing, you know, blockchain data across many chains. So you can only access certain endpoints on some chains, and you can only access NFT sales, in this specific format on other chains. It's all very scattered and very, very difficult to work with. Um, I love being asked about how Transpose is trying to solve that problem, the kind of the multi-chain data standardization problem, if you will, because we're going multi-chain as quickly as possible. We're going to Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, and BSE and beyond, as quickly as possible. And one of our top priorities in doing so is is this problem of, you know, pulling the exact same data models, the exact same endpoints,
Mm,
you know, regardless of what chain you're pulling data from, as if it
mm,
were all just one big chain. And the
mm,
ability to execute that is obviously easier said than done. But,
mm.
you know, if we can pull that off, I think it would just massively simplify kind of multi-chain application layer efforts. Um, you know, much at least much more than, you know, they are at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, again, most definitely knew there was something I missed, and I was going to ask on multi-chain support, but yes, you just answered that. I will most definitely be cool to see transpose across multiple chains and trying to solve all of the almost randomness that exists in crypto and Web3 as far as like data is concerned, because people are carrying out transactions on multiple chains at every single time, and so it makes sense that we just can't have our eyes solely focused on the EVM because there's an insane amount of resources that is being used in all of these other chains and other ecosystem that it does make sense to involve them in this process.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
All right, awesome. So once again, thank you so much, Alex. Thank you everyone who is in the audience who paid attention today, who listened, who joined the DAP list to just talk about the problem transpose and solve it. I hope this has been an informative session. I've learned a ton, and I look forward to working with the transpose data API and hopefully being able to solve some problems that currently exist in this space. Thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you, Alex, for your time. Thank you, Nebrik, for bringing up this with the DAP list. Thank you, everyone who sat through the entire session. It's been an amazing time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for hosting. Thank you to the DAP list for having us. Been a really eventful week and a great talk. You know, where the Transpose team is always on standby. You know,
Mm,
if you want to, you know, play around with it, if you want to just ask questions, if you want to just, you know, chat about the space, you know, we're always here. Our Discord is open all the time. So,
mm.
yeah, come on by.
Awesome. Yeah. So again, guys, you can follow the Transpose team. There's a card right above my avatar's head where you can just click on it and visit we have really interesting things lined out that you could go over. The Twitter account is there at Transpose Data. You can follow the team and learn more about what they're building. You can always reach out to Alex and just learn more about anything that you're curious about as far as transpose is concerned. So this has been Web3 one is to one by the DAP place where we bring in an amazing set of people building really cool stuff here in crypto, and we just ask them questions. We pick their brains. We get them to explain to us the thought process behind the product they're building and the why. So thank you for joining in. It's been an amazing session. Thank you, Alex. Shout out to Michael, and have a great weekend, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, bye.